This summer, we enter a new era of Star Wars.
You mean the Dawn of the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast?
Yeah, sure, that too. But I was obviously talking about The Acolyte. We've got to cover that on the Lorehounds.
Oh, but the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast is exactly at that point in the timeline, the end of the High Republic, 100 years before the prequel trilogy. We've got to cover it there.
Why not both?
Okay, deal.
It's the first live-action Star Wars outside the Skywalker saga. Nobody can miss this.
Listeners, kick off your hot lore summer weekends with scene-by-scene breakdowns of The Acolyte, found in both the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast and the Lorehounds Mother feed.
And the Lorehounds Star Wars feed.
Wherever you like to listen, a couple of days after each new episode is released.
Welcome to the House of the Hounds. We are the Lorehounds, your guides to the dance of the dragons. I'm John.
And I'm David. I think I need to gorge and rest, but we're going to carry on, and this is our coverage of Season 2, Episode 1, A Son for a Son of the HBO Max Original Series, House of the Dragon.
We're going to start off with our hot takes for the episode before we get into a scene-by-scene breakdown. After that, we'll answer listener feedback.
For feedback, we've got some help this season. Dragon Master Nancy M. is going to be collecting and organizing all of the feedback for us. You can send emails to hotd@thelorehounds.com, and don't be surprised if you get a thank you reply from Nancy. You can also send us a voicemail. We can include those right in the podcast. Voicemail tool is super easy to use. Just head over to thelorehounds.com. and go to the contact page, and it's right there for you.
Support the community on Supercast or Patreon, join the conversation on Discord, and take a listen to our affiliate podcasts. You can find all those links in the link tree in the show notes. Now, I also want to talk about what I've been working on, which is the show guide. For our patrons, our Supercast subscribers, and our season pass holders, which is a one-time fee, you get you basically get Patreon Supercast treatment, premium access to everything, only for House of the Dragon for this season. $10, and then you be on your merry way, but you never get billed again. So that's the trade-off. It's a fun time. But David, I feel like you're hotter on my show guide than I am.
Well, I wanted to say something about the show guide too. You know, the whole issue of subscriptions and being nickeled and dimed, and what we see a lot of times, people come around for a big show, they want to support us, and then they cancel and all of that kind of stuff. And then so we just said, let's make it easier. Pay a flat $10, you get all the value, and then you're done, and you get the show, and you get to help support the podcast. So I think it's a really good deal. The show guide is one of those benefits, and dude, I was looking at your episode 1 recap, all the GIFs that you made. Some people call them GIFs. The screenshots you got, the synopsis. Like I was like really honestly blown away by the amount of work. It's all indexed at the top. Like, so I needed to look up something about blood and cheese, and I was like, I could click and just jump right to the point in the synopsis.
I'm grateful that Notion lets you just say, give me a table of contents, and as long as you have headings, it'll just do it for you.
Oh, see, you really have become the master now.
Oh, you can just say, do a table of contents out of my headings.
That's cool. I didn't know that. Okay. You've eclipsed me with your Notion skills. Pretty awesome.
Well, you know, it's a game of Succession here, let's say. The Game of Thrones.
Right. The other thing we should mention for subscribers and and season pass holders is we did a little thing last night, hot takes. So you and I jumped on the mic right away after the episode was over. We recorded about 15 minutes of just our sort of top 3 favorite stuff that we saw in the episode, and then we put that out immediately. I think it was posted by like 10:30 last night Eastern time. And I don't know if we're going to keep doing those, but if we do, that's another great benefit for subscribers.
If you like them, write in. You know, we're always listening to what people want.
That's right. Nancy, our Dragon Master Nancy M will be glad to receive your email.
Absolutely. So, David, I wanted to say this is our first time doing a podcast for a lot of people, I think, because this is a new
show.
Season of a big show, and that's usually when we get some newcomers. So, hello, we're the Lorehounds. We cover a lot of nerdy things. And we started off with Tolkien. We've gotten way further. We're up to almost 300 episodes. So you will be safe on your journey with us through Westeros. Buckle in. We're going to have fun. As far as background, do you want to talk about your background briefly in the Westeros universe?
Sure, just briefly. I remember I'd been traveling abroad and living abroad for quite a long time, and I came home. I think it must have been the winter of 2011, and I was house sitting for some friends of mine, and I hadn't been caught up on what was going on TV, and so I was pecking around. I was like, oh, HBO, there's always good value there, and I stumbled across Game of Thrones, and they must have had, I think it must have been just season 1 at that point. I don't think season 2 was out, and I binge watched it in less than 12 hours. I think I just watched the whole thing back to back and was completely blown away. And then ended up reading the books and just burning through them, just like, oh my God, this content is so good. And then just being a fan ever since then. I am, we know that the last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones had its problems. It didn't bankrupt me. I don't think I was broken by the way that Game of Thrones ended. So, it was fine. I could see the flaws in it. But then when House of the Dragon comes along, and you and I just finished our season 1 rewatch. And I have to say that was a really excellent season of television. Mm-hmm. I'm just really impressed at the craft, at the storytelling, the way that they were able to seed all the different plot points. I'm seeing a lot of that in this episode as well. The little things that they were dropping just to set up this episode, but also to set up the season. So yeah, I have only read the core novels as they've been published, and so we don't have the last one. I've never read any of the auxiliary information, so I haven't read anything. So I'm really coming this as a average fan. Mm-hmm. Loved Game of Thrones, loving House of the Dragon, TV viewer. Read the books, but haven't gone deep like you and some of the other folks in our community.
Cool. Yeah. So the way we try to do these podcasts on these lore-heavy shows is usually we try to have one person be the book guy and one person be the non-book person. For this one, I'm kind of the book person, right? I'm not an expert by any means on the Westeros universe, but I have a very good amount of knowledge. I've read all the books. I've read Fire and Blood a couple times, and I've read Dunk and Egg, that stuff. So I am well versed in Westerosi culture, and because I'm doing the show guide, it's also making me more solidified in who people are and whatnot.
Bolstering your skills, yeah.
Yeah. I came into Game of Thrones pretty late. I came to it around season 5, but I was immediately into it. I remember somebody sold me on it with the Oberyn the Mountain.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That was the first thing somebody showed me, and I did not understand what a trial by combat was at that time, but that's all right because it sold me on the show. I started watching it. I binged the whole thing ahead of season 6, and I really loved it. I unfortunately did become fan bankrupt towards the end of the last season. Fan bankruptcy, by the way, comes from our former podcast network we used to be involved with, where they used to talk about fan bankruptcy being when you just can't take it seriously anymore. You declare fan bankruptcy and just have fun with it.
Yeah.
So you're just out on it. So I was really down on the last season towards the end, and it was a big shame. And I didn't think about Game of Thrones for a while. It drove me into the arms of Tolkien. It's famously part of our origin story. But House of the Dragon came back right when I was getting into podcasting with you, and I immediately from the first episode said, "Oh, this is quality. This is Game of Thrones at its best." And it's shocking because I honestly didn't expect to like it. I thought that it was just going to be a money grab or something like that. But I think the involvement of George, the fact that the story's already written all the way, and
they have the
having
blueprints.
Completely different showrunners,
right? Yeah, they have a blueprint for the story, and then they can fill in. Yeah.
Right. So those three things together, I think, worked really well to make a great story, especially because we know we're only getting 3 seasons. This is going to be a really tight, well-knitted story. Well embroidered story, if we're going to go into the intro.
If you will. One of our favorite motifs.
Right. So are we ready to give a big spoiler warning before our hot takes?
Well, this is it. This is your spoiler warning for episode 1 of season 2.
Very good. So if you have not watched the episode in full, do not complain to us if you stick around. We are
Come back, watch the episode. We'll be here.
We're going to talk about all the crazy stuff that happened in this episode. Be gone. If you're still here, David, what'd you think about the episode?
This was a really strong start to the season. The level of it almost doesn't feel like they had any kind of break between the end of season 1 and the beginning of this.
Yeah.
The confidence level, the confident storytelling, the character development, the production values, the music was on point, the visuals were on point. Like I mentioned before, the little story mechanics and plottings. We've got hints of things yet to come in the season, but then we had a lot of hints and little clues about what was going to happen in this episode. And all of that just tells me that's a thing that communicates to me quality. That this is a writer's room and showrunners and production team and cast. Everybody is pulling in the same direction, and there's a real sense of, I don't know, pride of ownership or something. I don't know how to explain that, but you just feel like people are giving their best here, and I love that. I was expecting a little bit more fire and blood, a little bit more combat, a little bit more, dragon dog fighting, things like that. But as we were going on the episode and that wasn't happening, I didn't even notice. I was so taken with the story as it was, and the buildup of the tension and what's going to happen. I didn't even notice the way that the whole son for a son thing was going to be set up, because I was
that's the name of the show.
That's your little sound clip that done earlier.
That's what I had to delay the recording of the show 5 minutes for. I just needed, hey, that's the name of the show from Arrested Development.
Good job. Well done. Yeah, I was so in the moment that I wasn't even thinking galaxy brain about the story overall. I was just like, okay, what's happening? And loving every minute of it. I thought the ramp up to the tension to the end was great. There's only one moment where I was taken out, and that was with the White Worm with Melisandre. I want to say Melisandre. That's not
Missaria.
Right. Missaria, thank you. With Missaria, and I thought, well, she got caught pretty easily by the right person in the right place, but whatever, it was fine. Other than that, it was a real mastercraft in episode production, and to bring a season, there's a lot at stake for this season, for HBO, for the fandom. The podcast community, this is like the Super Bowl for, podcasts like, what we do.
Or
everybody's, people are doing live watches.
That's what it is.
That's what it is. And if it faltered or if it had stumbled, and everybody would be lighting their hair on fire and running around. But I just feel like, wow, here we are, television fandom, and we're all pulling in the same direction for the show. And they delivered. They really gave us what we were. They met our expectations, and I think exceeded them.
That's great. I would like them to exceed our expectations rather than subvert them.
Yes.
That's really what I'm looking for here. Boy, this was a heck of an episode to open up with, especially on Father's Day with a son for a son. Somebody at HBO marketing was like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, we got to line this up.
This is it. Great job. Whoever that is, great job. 10 out of 10. Something that really struck me that somebody pointed out on Reddit was Emma Darcy spoke 4 words in this entire episode.
What?
And may have given the performance of the episode.
Oh, yeah. That's true, isn't it?
4 words. I want Aemon Targaryen. That's it.
That's so great. That's such a great observation. I hadn't even caught that.
Forward. Amazing. The way she emotes as she's holding her son's remains, the way that she is enraged at the council meeting, the way she wordlessly comforts her son Jace as he can't hold it together. My God. Amazing performance. And as much as I miss Millie Alcock, I don't know if she could emote this way. I don't know if she could play this side of Rhaenyra this well.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Boy, Emma Darcy is doing a crazy good job.
Yeah, exceptional performance.
And other great performances too. I mean, Blood and Cheese were just a delightful pair. They had that Home Alone 2 vibe going. And yeah, somebody else said online, like, how can we make somebody stand out as a bad guy in the Game of Thrones universe where everybody's a bad guy? Why don't we have him kick a dog? That'll really sell it.
When he did that, I was kind of like a Leo pointing meme. I was like, no, we kicked a dog. That's going to piss people off.
It's funny because we literally have a baby being killed in this episode.
Right, and people get mad at kicking a dog.
But yeah, the dog was the standout thing that people got mad about.
Yeah.
But
if I could just add into kicking the dog, killing a baby, not funny things, but there were so many other moments of levity. And I think they really took a lesson from last year and understood that we need to mix in a little bit of sugar along with our spice. Right?
Yeah. I think that's right. And there were certainly parts that made me guffaw, one might say. But then, of course, with the close of the episode, my wife looks at me because we have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and she goes, I need to hold my baby right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't because we weren't going to wake them up because, But man, I was just like, yeah, that's rough. It's really rough to watch that as a parent because you're like, I couldn't imagine somebody doing that to me.
Yeah.
And this is less brutal than it was in the book, too. And I'll get to that. I will talk about it. I saw an interview with Ryan Condal. They did definitely change things from the book the way I thought they did. So I can talk about it freely. It's not going to happen in the show.
Then one of the nice things, too, because a lot of times with the genre material that we cover, there is a lot of book adaptation and inspiration, stuff being drawn from books. We have a whole framework to just, break that down, too. The Shippey test and the Sanderson slider. Anyway, the fact that this is a faux history and that it works as a blueprint, again, really serves this writer's room. It's a giant show Bible. It's just a giant outline of resource for writers to do what writers need to do. And I think that really serves this in a way that for a lot of other shows that do take adaptation or inspiration, they don't have the luxury. They have to do a lot of work to bend and maneuver stuff. So yeah, I don't know. It just seems to work really well.
Yeah. This is a great world to play in.
Yeah.
If you're doing a D&D campaign, this would be a fun one to make it in, right?
Sure.
So yeah, I think we should get right into this before we lose the fire of the Fire and Blood.
I'm engorged. So, well, maybe that's a weird way to say that. So never mind.
Don't do that. Let's leave that one out. All right. So we're back, and there's a new title sequence with the same music, of course. I still would like its own theme to be put into the show, but that's all right. I still like the Game of Thrones theme. So instead of the blood flowing in season 1's title sequence, we get a tapestry woven of Targaryen history. Of course, there's a lot of blood still seeping into the tapestry itself, but the final shot shows Aegon and Rhaenyra on opposite sides of the thrones, divided by a dragon. What'd you think of this new this new episode? Of course, the weaving of tapestries is your whole thing. That's your running joke here. One
of my running jokes. One of many. My heart was not in conflict with itself on this particular one. I thought it was kind of a bold choice to, this opening is in league with all of the other things like Westworld, The Crown. What was it? Shogun recently had a very, a kind of a similar thing. So these sort of computer animated.
Even Rings of Power had that.
Yes, right. Rings of Power for sure. So it it was very much in line with that prestige class of intros. I thought, wow, that's a really interesting creative choice. I definitely like it more than I don't think I dislike it, and I want to understand it more. As the images were passing by, I was realizing that this is sort of a history of stuff, and I didn't know, is this past? Is this portent? Is this telling us what's not portent?
It looks like past. There's very clear, I wasn't sure right at first, but there's very clear Great Council images that we saw in season 1 in the flashback at the beginning, the cold open of season 1.
Yeah.
There's Jaehaerys, there's, Viserys sitting on his throne. So it's the past, it seems like. So I wonder if we're going to update it every episode now.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. We'll have to stick around and watch it every time. And I'm sure the YouTubes are already filled with breakdown videos. And so, a matter of going to see what are all of these different images. And we'll definitely include some of that analysis as we go forward. But yeah, it was a little bit of a head scratcher, but not in a bad way. Like, oh, okay, it's kind of cool. Let me see if I can get with it. It was better than the blood, sort of the blood puzzle that was that we had last year.
Didn't like that one. This one, I actually, I'm a lot more hot on it than you are. Okay, I really loved it, and the reason I loved it was because what does Helena do all day? She embroiders tapestries with her prophecies.
Very good point.
So is this supposed to be, like the quilts of Targaryen history by Helena?
Well, and we had all those tapestries on those very suggestive tapestries on the wall last season.
Well, I don't think Helena knitted those. Was she alive?
No.
I think she was, but she was a baby.
Right, but it's still part of the humor of that whole thing. And
right.
This. But yeah, I think the Helena observation is way more on point.
Thank you. I do this for a living a little bit. So we've done the tapestry. We start off the episode at Winterfell. I guess we see a raven flying us through the forest into Winterfell while Cregan Stark speaks a monologue about the Starks. Cregan takes Jace to the wall, explaining that 1 in 10 men from each household, including the Starks, joins the Night's Watch to defend against wildlings or weather, not against wildlings or weather, but against death. Cregan holds true to his oath to Rhaenyra, but is concerned about sending troops with the oncoming winter. He promises 2,000 graybeards to the cause just before they receive a raven about Luke's death.
Duty. Do you have a sense of duty, John, in your oath?
Are you Jamie Tart?
I don't know. Yeah, that was
what are you doing there?
I was trying to do the northerner accent. It is a very northern English accent in a way.
It's Sean Bean. Let's just be honest with ourselves. It's Sean Bean. Man. Yeah, I mean, I love the vibe of Cregan. Do you know, though, that the showrunners have come out and said that this was a tease for the future? We're not going to see him again in season 1.
Oh, really?
Rather.
No, I haven't. Yeah. I haven't been following up on any of the auxiliary information. I'm trying to keep my soul pure.
Oh well, I'm going to ruin it for you.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, get all in up in there.
And you can't talk to me like that when we're talking about Game of Thrones. This is a very saucy show. But yeah, I mean, what a joy it is to see Winterfell again and hear the Stark theme.
We got a lot. People in the Discord were very excited by the Winterfell, for sure.
Yeah, this was actually a change with how little Jace was in the North right now.
Okay,
this was a divergence from the book, and I think they could have done with more Winterfell. That was one of my few complaints about this episode.
Interesting. Okay,
I just think that people want it. People want the Starks. They're the fan favorite.
So was that the sword that Cregan was carrying? That is the family sword, right?
That's ice. That is the giant Valyrian greatsword.
Yeah, the thing was huge. I was thinking we should have on our show guide a place for like weapons and objects, things like the crowns and the daggers and stuff like that.
And when I have time to do that, I think we can do that. But for now, I'm just like You get the episode guides for now, and the character guides, and the dragon guides, and the geography, and that's what you get.
That sword was so prominent, though. Like, couldn't help but see
Yep.
it multiple times.
Yep. And I get the sense that Cregan knows how to use it.
Mm-hmm. Even though he seems very young, both him and Jace seem pretty close in age, and I thought I saw some chatter on our Discord too about the fact that they were, like, maybe in the books that they had spent some time together as
That's what I'm saying. Is Jace spent a lot more time in the North at this point in the book, because I think, and they kind of alluded to that at the end of last season, because Rhaenyra says to Jace, "Hey, Cregan Stark is similar in age to you. Go to him and try to bond with him."
Okay.
But then we don't see that. But they do seem to have bonded by the time we see them.
Yes.
But it's weird because it's only a few days after Luke's death. It's only a few days after the end of season 1.
And he just flew up there, and this was sort of his first, and he'd never seen the wall or anything like that. So, and I think that goes to Jace's character and what they're telling us about his character, that he is a likable person, that he has a particular kind of self-confidence where he can comport himself well. He can operate as a good negotiator, and when he meets somebody like Cregan, he can bond with him. And as I understand in the books, they have a lot more time together, but here, if they don't, that just reinforces for me, though, the fact that Jace is a particular kind of bro, kind of dude, and he bonds,
and a worthy heir.
Yeah.
Regardless of his parentage, I think he's a worthy heir.
Right. He's got a good sense of values, and a good a character, a good sense of himself, and that helps you when you're working with other people.
And my God, the hair growth genes on this guy.
I didn't recognize him at first. I was like, who's that?
It's been days, and he looks like he's in the 4th Harry Potter movie.
I tell you what. Yeah, I knew what that was. You just have to go blow by that, don't you? It's just one of those things.
Clearly, costuming was like, look, whoever, I don't know, is it a new wig person?
I don't
That's the question, because a lot of the wigs are changed, and I think for the better. But I'm like, did they get a new wig person who said, look, the wigs in season 1, they needed some work. I don't care what you did. I'm doing my own thing.
Well, who knows? Maybe writing on Dragon back all the way from Dragonstone to Winterfell.
It pulls the hairs out of the fibers.
All that heat. Friction. You're next to all that heat, from the dragon.
This is absurd. I'm moving on. Rhaenys returns.
Wait. One thing, though, that was relevant and very important, that I did like as a tie into our world and obviously what we know about Game of Thrones, was the fact that Cregan says, there were a couple of dragons up here, and they refused to cross the line of the wall. Like, so you tell me, what's more important? The most powerful, force in our world, these dragons, were afraid to cross, to go over there. So what's over there? Yeah, that's an important thing that we need to keep our eye on, regardless of what y'all want to do, mucking about down in the Southlands. So I felt that was a really nice, solid anchor into the Game of Thrones world as a whole, not just Game of Thrones season, but the Hedge Knight stuff that's coming up, and just everything. It worked well.
The dragons won't cross the wall unless Jon Snow asks nicely. That's the rule.
We need a nice dragon.
Them's the breaks.
I don't want it.
All right, Rhaenys returns to Dragonstone, where Daemon propositions her to kill Aemond and Vhagar with him, a son for a son.
That's the name of the show.
The queen has been gone for several days to look for Luke's remains. Daemon blames Rhaenys for not acting well she could to end the Green Line. Rhaenyra looks on.
If but you were the king. That was such a burn.
Great line. Great chemistry.
Yes. Oh, I have to mention too, I remember some of the back chatter from season 1. Whenever somebody would dismount from a dragon, they would cut away, and then we just see them then, walking forward or something like that. And so people online were like, "Oh, how do they get down from the dragon? Blah, blah, blah." Well, now they've shown us. They've showed us exactly how it's done. Either, in a, you pull into your garage, into your valet parking garage, or when you're on the beach or whatever, and how you get down. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like, I like the fact that the showrunners and the writers are picking up some of the stuff that got, some of the chatter that happened in the previous seasons. Also, the episode was visible. We could see the entire episode.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Also, listen, Ryan Condal, if you're going to save 10% of your CGI budget, like $10 million, by not having Rhaenys go off dragon on camera, I'm okay with that. Like, I don't need to see that.
We've got it done now. It's done. It's in the canon. Right. We're good to go. So, okay, moving on.
Yeah. So, Damon, what do you think about him trying to pull rank with Rhaenys?
That, I mean, he was trying, right? He's the kind of guy. He's like, if I can't, okay, I'm going to try it this way. It's not working. I'll try it that way. If it's not working, I'll try. He's going to try to figure out the combination to unlock the lock.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew he was being cheeky with her, and and even the way he said, I command you, it was kind of soft and a little bit friendly and open. And he immediately followed it up like, "Let's go kick some ass! Come on, you and me, we can do this."
Dream team.
He's trying to upsell it, and she was just not having it. So,
right, and note that he doesn't ask Rhaenyra to do it because he knows she'll say no.
Right, exactly. And he's been doing this the whole time, right? When she, during her labors, earlier on, he was like, okay, we're going to war. And didn't Jace have to step in and actually pull him to heel?
He had to put a stop to that.
This is just classic Daemon, right? It's, and who knows? Maybe it would have worked. Who knows? But maybe it wouldn't have. So
I'm going to go with it probably wouldn't have worked. Between the Scorpions and Vhagar, that was that.
The law of unintended consequences would have come into play, for sure, as it did last season and this season.
This very episode, one might say.
This very episode.
So let's go over to Rhaenys' husband. Corlys looks over the shipyards as his ship is restored. Alan of Hull says he will do his best to get Corlys' ship back up and gives him a blade smiths for loot. Corlys thanks Alan for pulling him out of the sea.
So, for those of you who are subscribers and season pass holders and people on our Discord, I got really excited because I thought the actor was somebody else, but he's not. He was the actor who played father in a show called Raised by Wolves. And I got confused when I saw him because I really liked him. And I was like, I know that guy. Like, where is he in? So anyway, my bad on that. But Alan, I was like, Allen? No. It has to have a Y in it.
It's George. You can't expect George R. Martin to spell a fucking name right.
Love it. So who is this dude? Like, what? They gave him a lot of screen time.
They did.
For what? ...
Yeah, and they did. I labeled him Alan of Hull in the outline and in the show guide because that is what the subtitles called him.
Okay.
That is going to be what he's known as. He will be around. I will not say more than that.
Say no more. But obviously,
and we know that he is owed a life debt from Corlys, which is a big deal for a commoner.
Sure. And Corlys was very up and up about that. He was like,
right.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? Anyway, yeah, no, that's fine. I think we're. Oh, I know what it was. It's that the show again is all mixed in, and you never quite know what's a small clue and what's a big clue. Right later, there's the line about, "Oh, I'm afraid of the rats," and that was a small thing. But then we got like this, or the scorpion. Chekhov's scorpion later coming up. So they're doing a really good job of dropping these little clues. Who is the guy? Season 1 when Rhaenyra was walking up the stairs right after she given labor and the Lord.
Oh, he's dead.
Right? No. But remember, it's a little scene.
Lord
but it
Caswell.
sets up, yeah, Caswell. A little scene sets up a whole bunch of stuff, and so you never quite know where these little setups are going to go. And I love it. I'm here for it because it keeps it a really rich tapestry.
Right. Well, I'm sure. See, the interesting thing is that this show sets up those kinds of things for book readers, and non-book readers. Like there are, like this is something where if you didn't have me with you, you might think maybe he'll be important because of the whole Corliss conversation, but
Right.
I'm gonna tell you, pay attention to him. But there are definitely things happening right now that I'm just not gonna pick up on.
Right.
And
Okay.
that's fine. Like that's great.
And what was the deal with this? Now, this blade that he that was something that they had smithed for Luke.
Well, yeah, because Corliss had Luke named his heir,
right?
And
so this was like a blade
gift.
that a gift for him, right?
Yeah, and it was ready right after he died. So sad.
More sad tears.
Poor Luke. He did nothing. But I do enjoy seeing, the Valerians prepare for war. That's really fun, is seeing these shipyards on Driftmark.
Yeah, they were being very busy there. They were being very busy. I was going to say too, Steve Toussaint, he looks different physically. It looks like he lost weight, which I was like, oh, the actor's aged, during the season shoot or whatever. But then no, wait, that makes sense because he was on his deathbed.
Right.
And
I didn't notice him looking too different.
Okay.
But
yeah, he looked a little bit more gaunt. His hair was not as full and regal as he had been in the past. So it sort of tracks.
Right. And we only saw him for a couple of minutes at the end of season 1.
That's true. That's a good point.
So Eric, the
with an A.
So Eric with an A is a green twin, and Eric with an E is the black twin. They're on opposite teams.
Right.
Eric leads Hightower troops as they prepare the defense of King's Landing. They see Aemond return home on Vhagar.
Well, as I said, Chekhov's scorpion here.
Yeah, and isn't it so? It's such good exposition to not be like, hey, we're all on edge, but instead have them be like, ready the scorpion because we see a dragon in the distance.
Yeah. And look sharp and getting everybody, it's boring up here. I mean, they'd all be on their mobile phones if they, if it was a different time, because that's it's boring duty sitting up there.
Right.
I think that's the other thing too was not only is it Chekhov's scorpion, but I think the show is training us. And somebody even mentioned this on the Discord that you need some sort of signaling or whatever. Maybe the dragons should keep a little flag off their tail or something like that, like ships would do. It's like during the Napoleonic era and stuff, right? You fly your different flags to identify friend from foe, and so the show not only teased us with the scorpion, but they're training us to look for in the future, this is going to be a situation. Whose dragon is that? How do I identify that dragon? Right. And if it is an enemy dragon, WTF, what are we going to do? Because that's bad news.
And like who's in command? Because Eric was able to recognize Vhagar, but is everybody going to be able to recognize Vhagar?
Very good point.
Although Vhagar is one of the easiest ones to recognize because first of all, she's huge. Second, she's got holy wings.
Yeah, and that's another really good point. Like we got the silhouette, right? Just like air raid training for like during World War II, thinking about being able to identify is that Allied or Axis plane, based on the silhouette shape. So.
Well, I look forward to it when you ever record your Masters of the Air second podcast.
Oh man, yeah. That was a disappointing show. I really wanted to like that one a lot.
I know. Well, I'm sorry, but not as sorry as Helena will be. She embroiders her prophecy etchings while Aegon seeks his son Jaehaerys. Helena says she's afraid of the rats.
The queen is an enduring mystery, is she not?
The things she says need to be studied like they're biblical texts.
Seriously.
There was a John Mulaney bit where he said, crazy people have an unlimited amount of crazy to throw at you. And Helena's got that. But she also is speaking truth at the same time.
Right.
And how do you deal with that? What do you do about that?
Well, you just laugh it off like Aegon did, and he's just like, oh, she's an enduring mystery. Oh, as his eyes sort of roll around and where's my son? And get the hell out of there.
Right. Yeah. What do you think about their dynamic here?
I was surprised in some ways because I was a little worried if he was going to go hard in the Joffrey direction and just be sort of cruel and brutal and unafraid of using physical violence to get what he wants with people that are closest around him. And in fact, he was just kind of like, "Hey, where's my son?" And like, he's got to be king one day, so I want to bring him along. I mean, I'm not excusing a lot of other things, but I was really surprised at the fact that there was, I don't know, a kind of a, I don't know. It wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting
It was
a little bit more of a
mundane,
tense
right?
situation. Yeah, it was much more. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Hey, listen, it's bring your son to work day, and I need to find him.
Yes. And she's like, "Don't disturb him," which I didn't understand that either. Like, don't disturb his rituals or whatever.
His studies. He was going to study with the maester. I feel like she knows that the king's a bad influence on her. On
that's
him,
a good point.
rather.
Right. Stay away from him a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we'll see more on them later. For now, let's go to Sir Criston, servicing his queen, who tells him they just cannot do this again. She helps him don his white cloak.
His soiled and sullied white cloak. This guy, man.
What a hypocrite. I mean, it's obvious. Yeah, both of them. I mean, this is literally the thing that incited their hatred of Rhaenyra, their disdain for her.
Potentially incited a war, because would Alicent have been so gung-ho to put her son on the throne in replacement of Rhaenyra if she hadn't thought that Rhaenyra had disappointed her from her estimation of what lords and ladies should be all about, right?
Right. I mean, how many people do we know who are saying, good for me, not for thee, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what Alicent is. That's exactly what Criston is. Criston's actually more at fault than Rhaenyra, because Rhaenyra was a free woman, right? She wasn't married. She didn't take an oath of chastity.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Criston is the one who broke his oath of chastity and shirked his duties at work to have sex with the person he was supposed to be
his
guarding.
Protectee. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And here he is again. And we'll see what happens when he shirks his duties again.
Yeah, that was a big point of mine later on, was like, oops.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't it interesting that both Rhaenyra and Alicent have snagged with this guy?
It is interesting. And this is not in the book at all.
Okay.
This is a show edition. And I think people are saying that the showrunners are just straight up Team Black. I think this is undoubted. They both worsen Alicent with this, and they soften Daemon later with the way he approaches blood and cheese.
You made a really good point, though, in our hot takes last night, which is that Alicent, for once, is pursuing, okay, granted, big context here, around the larger issues of what's going on, but at least in this micro, and of course, this is what George does, right? He puts us into these positions of, oh, wow, what that person just did was really interesting, but then the other stuff that they're doing is really terrible. So, like, I got to take the person as a whole. And in that, Alicent, in this moment, in this part of her life, is pursuing her own agency and her own pleasure and her own sense of being, her physical being, when all she was, and this is the point you made last night, was that, she was a dutiful wife.
Mm-hmm.
And being receptive to her husband was never a pleasure for her.
Right.
It was a chore. It was duty.
I mean, she was basically having sex with a corpse for 10 years.
Thanks for that wonderful image. Thank you, John, for that.
Can you imagine the Phantom of the Opera from last season?
Oh,
I mean, come on.
Oh.
Come on.
So you can't, I mean, okay, Criston Cole is an oath breaker and vile in a whole bunch of ways, but he is kind of a hunky guy. I mean, he's not my type. But I can see why,
and he's ageless for some reason.
He is. It's true. He has a lush head of hair. He's got a nice, physique. Sure, I get it. And yet So one of the things that I particularly appreciate is the fact that both Alicent and Rhaenyra have been with this guy, right? So it sort of parallels their relationship and their friendship and, the ins and outs between these two women. But then, like, what does this say about Kristen Cole that he's just ready to throw his cloak down on, a snap of a finger and, he's there? Like, dude, like, seriously.
All you got to do with Kristen Cole is ask.
That's right?
That's it.
Take your cloak off, my good man. Stay a while.
Oh, man. Not great. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting development for Alicent. This is the first time she's ever sought pleasure for herself instead of imparting pleasure on someone else.
Right.
And that's big character development. And I said this last night when it was late at night and I was making stupid jokes. And I said, listen,
you were spicy.
If you had this happen just a little earlier, if he had a taste of if he had a taste of that high tower a little earlier, I think that this whole war would not have happened because Alicent would have been so relaxed. She would have been fine. The girl just needed to get off for 20 years.
Seriously. Oh my God, you're gonna make me choke.
But also something that somebody said that I saw, I don't remember where, but was if it were anyone other than Kristen Cole, I would be thrilled for her.
Right. Yes, that's a really good point. That is
literally the one person it should not be.
Oh man, it's just so yeah. And then she's like, "Oh, we can't do this again." Right.
Yeah, he'll come back to Old Town later. Ring that bell.
There's quite an intimacy between them too. The way she puts on his cloak and everything, and a line that she mentioned, which seems like mundane chatter, is a little bit telling though, because she's like, "Oh, there's a bite to the air. It's summer is over." So we get a little bit of the winter is coming motif woven back into our storyline there.
And I love the joke earlier on with Jace when he goes, "Winter is coming," and Jace goes, "The hell is this?"
What are these things that are falling from the sky? What the hell is that?
Because it basically never snows in King's Landing.
So we got two references to winter is coming. In terms of other characters noting that summer is over.
Right. Well, David, we've had our fun making jokes about Alicent. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, we will go to the Green Council. We'll be right back with more House of the Dragon. And we're back with more House of the Dragon. The Green Council convenes, and Aegon brings Jaehaerys to observe. Otto doubts the loyalty of the North, but the Council has the Stormlands, the West, and Old Town. Alicent suggests Aegon send condolences to Rhaenyra, but Aegon spends the Council time belittling Sir Tyland. Alicent backs Aegon up. Aemon joins them and suggests they take Harrenhal and rule the Riverlands. Otto suggests patience and restraint, earning a scoff from Aegon. Did you like the scoff, David?
Well, what I liked more was the discomfort that Tyland was experiencing.
Did you see the screenshot I got?
No, I didn't. In the
you got to go to the show guide because
I'm in the show guide.
It was a hilarious shot that I accidentally got. It looks like it could be the start of a spin-off comedy.
All right, episode 1, season 2, episode 1 recap. The Green Council table of content.
They look like they just got caught like fighting over a toy.
So cute that they did. They did get
I guess they did, yeah. But the actor for Tyland really did a great job of selling me on like he's one of the kids too.
Yeah. It's
Very
so good.
Funny.
And the whole thing of like, whoa, wouldn't it be fun to ride the Master of Coin around? Oh, is he disturbing you, my good man?
Right.
And you're like, this kid's psycho. I cannot say no.
Right.
So
right.
That it was all that, like we were saying before, the levity just sort of, gently mixed into the thing, just enough to loosen up your palate a little bit and just go, okay, this is not so heavy and dour like it was last season.
Yeah. Also, I love Otto's cork board. They have this cool, awesome table at Dragonstone where they pour hot liquid into it so it lights up. And instead, Otto's like, yeah, I got a cork board. He's like Charlie Day in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, using string across the Seven Kingdoms. What do you think about the balance of power he's laying out?
I think I need to think about the strategic situation a little bit closer. I think there was a whole bunch of points made, and I wasn't able to sort of grasp all of the strategy in one go. I think you used to do that with. Didn't you have a risk board or something for Game of Thrones?
I still do. I still have it. I don't bring it out anymore because my children try to eat the pieces. But yeah, I used to do that with Game of Thrones, but I could still visualize it for myself. And so right now we've got Otto saying, hey, look, we've got, obviously King's Landing. We have the Stormlands, which we learned, of course, when Luke died.
Please don't take us to Dorne. Like, can we just leave Dorne out of this?
Dorne's a really cool place. They did it dirty in Game of Thrones.
They did.
I hope that if they do it, they will do a good job of it. So Dorne is not on the table right now. The Greens have the West still because of Casterly Rock, and Casterly Rock has always had a firm grip on those lands.
Right.
And they're saying they also have Old Town, which is in the Reach. Now, Old Town is an interesting situation because it's not the Hightowers are not the Lord Paramount. They are subservient to the Tyrells of Highgarden. However, the Tyrells basically let them do whatever they want because they have Old Town and the Citadel and a big army.
Mm-hmm.
So right now they're so powerful that basically they can do whatever they want. And so House Tyrell has not declared right now, and we don't know what's going to happen with the rest of the Reach, but we do know that we at least have the armies of Old Town, which is considerable.
Right. But still, it's pretty far south, right? If I remember right.
If we look, it's closer to Dorne. Yeah.
So, but they can come. They'll come right up the middle and into the Highgarden territories, right?
Right. So they should be able to. So I'm pulling up the map now, so I don't say something wrong and get added.
Get crushed by the ads.
It's so easy to get added with this fandom. Yeah, so Old Town is off the coast. It's on the southwest coast. Yeah. Oh, Star Wars. You get something wrong and you get a letter. But
sent in the mail.
Right. So there's a direct road from Old Town through Honeyhull into Highgarden on the way to. So yeah, they have to go through it to get to King's Landing, basically.
Right. So that's pretty important lands up the middle there, though. And then we have the Riverlands, which is always being the a key point there with the river crossing.
Right. So that's the other thing that they're saying is we need to take Harrenhal so we could basically take the middle of Westeros.
Right.
We also hear later Daemon says, let's take Harrenhal.
Yes, and he was ready
to first.
Yeah, there's a good line like, I'm ready to fly there right now. Let's go.
Now, do we think, here's something that I'll make you consider. Do we think that if Daemon had not been ordered to get Aemond right away, because that's what Rhaenyra orders, right? I want Aemond Targaryen. 4 words. If Daemon hadn't done that, would he have already flown to Harrenhal and taken it?
Burned it yet again.
Nobody's there right now.
Right.
Because Larys is the Lord. He doesn't have a family. And he killed his whole family.
Right.
And he's in King's Landing.
Yeah, that's a pretty big gap to be leaving open like that.
Yep.
I'm surprised. Yeah, you'd think you'd want to occupy that pretty quick.
Yep.
Let's see where I'm trying to look on the map okay, that's down there.
Yeah.
Where is Casterly Rock?
Casterly Rock is all the way to the west. So
yeah. There it is. Okay, I see it. Yeah, you got to cross those mountains first. So it's pretty far from Harrenhal as well.
Right. But so if the Greens can get the Riverlands, then they can keep the people of the Vale from
Right, they
getting
can keep
to the
the
Crown
North.
Lands, pretty much. They can keep
Right.
the North and the Vale
All
from
bottled
getting
up.
lower.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
twins. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm starting to reorient myself to all of this.
Especially Harrenhal is directly in the path of the Vale, getting to King's Landing.
Exactly. And they want a dragon for, we'll get to that later.
Right. So yeah, there's a tough balance of power right now. It seems pretty even to me, honestly.
Mm-hmm. With the balance of power with the dragons, but everybody's being very cautious about deploying their dragons.
Right.
So.
Well, speaking of the Strongs, go ahead.
I was just going to say with the gullet all blocked up and the shipping
the blockade.
bottled up. Yeah, the blockade. That's pretty significant as well. So yeah, things are pretty balanced because they have. Okay, carry on.
They've got the Navy.
I'm working the math in my head.
We'll do it over the course of the episode. Speaking of the Strongs with Harrenhal, Larys Strong reports to Alicent that he has had all of the spies killed and has chosen Alicent's new staff personally. Alicent requests privacy in the bath and sends her handmaidens away.
Not before Larys mentions, you were a little bit occupied, my queen.
I know. Absolutely, he knows. Yeah.
Is this the yuckiest sexual triangle that we've ever had?
She was filling her coals.
John.
I'm done. I'm done now. We're in Game of Thrones. I can say what I want.
That's true. But yeah, I'm interested in what will arise between Larys and Criston Cole. Like, is Larys jealous? Is he a possessive type, or is he just going to use that for information? Like, does he actually have feelings for the queen in a way?
Great question.
Okay.
No idea.
Okay.
I don't think he's tipped his hand.
No.
But I do think he's trying to impart on her, like, don't go too far away from me because I have so much dirt on you.
Oh my gosh, right? The fact that, I've picked your staff personally. Like, that's scary. That is really scary.
Now, you'll recall later we have this scene where Helena is running down the hallway to Alicent's room.
Yep.
And there's not a single guard around.
Dude. Oh my God, dude. Oh, what the hell? I even shouted that in our live watch chat. Like, no guards. But
here's the thing. Larys just said, I got rid of everybody and I've chosen a new staff. We don't know if they're set up yet. We don't know if they're trained. We don't know if they're in. I sense a gap. That plus Sir Criston guarding.
Yeah, and where's the King's Guard? That's what
exactly.
At a
that's his hallway.
At a bare minimum, the King's Guard is there protecting the royal family, let alone the regular overall security for the Red Keep. Spies and armed personnel, together.
Right. And
so yeah, big gap.
And somebody pointed out online too, this is the second time we've seen him assign night duty. And the first time was when Aemon lost an eye. Right. He's very bad at protecting the Hightowers.
He's very bad at his job. Not good.
Yeah.
Not good. There was a little thing when Alicent was taking a bath. She looked over at one of the handmaids who was like, and I didn't get a chance to catch this scene a second time, but it was like they were putting some herbs into something, and it just seemed a little bit suspicious. So I don't know if that's going to come into play, or if she just didn't like the creepiness of having all these new people who are doing things in ways that she's maybe not necessarily used to.
Well, all these new people who were hired by Larys,
yes, as we know.
I think she feels really gross from that, and I think she lives her whole life based on shame and guilt. And the whole act of, we see as soon as she gets off with Criston Cole, she goes, we can't do this anymore out of shame and guilt. So I just think she was disgusted with herself.
And the way she was scrubbing her arm.
Right.
And just trying to wash herself of all of this. Olivia Cook is doing such a good job with this character. She is. She is perfect for this role.
Right. She's been really outspoken lately too. I don't know if you've seen, but
no, I haven't.
Constantly doing interviews. She actually critiqued the show at one point. She said, I don't understand why Criston Cole cannot age for 20 years, but they have to replace the actor for Allison, so she can age. She says, she's
Okay.
like, why do they make the women get replaced to be older, but not the men? It's like, that's a pretty good point.
Okay.
Rhaenyra sees a group of fishermen find Arrax's wing and Luke's cloak. Rhaenyra and Syrax mourn their children. Now, I say their children. We don't have confirmation that Syrax mothered Arrax, but it is suggested that she was the one who laid the egg.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's some piece of lore I was missing. That's
and you
interesting.
see the way that she howls, she roars
right.
when she sees it. I got that picture in the show guide because I thought it was such a beautiful shot when she's crying out as Rhaenyra is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this whole setup, right? So we get into this this middle section. This episode was so well constructed because they had to bring us all up to speed with what's happening in the world in the last couple of days, and then the fallout, and then the mourning for Luke, and then the blood and cheese, stuff. It's just so well put together.
Viserys is back there going, do I mean nothing to you? Like, I've been dead 48 hours and all this stuff happens.
Right, exactly. That's a really good point.
Like, have we just forgotten that this guy just died?
Yeah, look at that. Look at Eric's. I mean,
Viserys?
Syrax.
Syrax. Okay.
Syrax. Yeah,
okay, I see. You're coming up on the show guide. I can see your little icon.
Yeah, the way that Syrax is upset. Clearly upset. Very good pick. Good call.
Aegon holds court. A shepherd named Gerard comes to request his sheep tax refund. Aegon immediately decides to give them back, but Otto convinces him against it. After another commenter complains about salt, a smith named Hugh asks for payment in advance, so all the smiths could continue building weapons.
Were you surprised by Aegon's attitudes towards the small folk? I was taken aback by all of this.
To me, it seemed like somebody who was very naive and just being like, yeah, give them what they ask for.
But I was expecting him after, some of the buildup from season 1. Again, I'm just thinking, what was his name? Season 1 king. I'm blanking.
Viserys?
No. Season Game of Thrones.
Oh, Game of Thrones king,
Joffrey. Sorry, yeah, I was thinking total Joffrey energy. So I thought he was going to have this real brutality towards the small folk, but yet he's naive. Absolutely, I'm not denying that. But there's a kind of a kindness and a wanting to, okay, we took your stuff, so yeah, maybe we should make you whole. Like, that is not at all what I was expecting from him, and it really made me double take. And I like it. I like the way that what they're doing with it all. It just surprised me.
Yeah, it's a complex character, right? Because we know he's personally extremely selfish and extremely self-indulgent.
I don't want it.
But he, as a king, is just like, oh, sure, if you have a problem, that's fine. It's not my money. It's
right.
It's the government money. I don't care. He doesn't care, right? He's just a teenager, not sure what he wants to do.
The magnanimous.
Yeah, and yeah, I just think there's a big difference in his demeanor because of that. And somebody pointed out too that he is very like, yeah, let's help the small folk. And there's a line where Rhaenyra in season 1 is out with Daemon watching the puppet show about her, and she says, well, it doesn't matter what the small folk think. So a little dismissive of them.
Right. Oh, interesting. That's a good point. Where he's like, he's a little bit more tied to the small folk. I mean, he had child fighting pits. I mean, okay, gross. He was hanging out with small folk, right, and having a good time, and trying to live a I don't know. It's weird because he's royalty. He can't escape it. He's got money and privilege, and so he's using his money and privilege to, do gross stuff. But he also was just kind of hanging out, and he didn't really want to be king. So
right,
it's a tough one.
What'd you think about Hugh? You think he's coming back?
Hugh the Smith? They did give him a lot of screen time as well, and brought, and he was more present than the other two were.
Yeah.
So, Jared got dismissed. The middle guy got like nothing.
Yeah.
So it did really feel like the third guy, they were setting up something a little bit more. And of course, they tie in with the scorpions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something like, how many bolts do they have? How many scorpions can they actually build? So
take note of Hugh. Note of Hugh. That's all.
Interesting.
He's in the show guide.
Okay.
He already has his own entry.
Oh, all right. All right.
So,
okay.
My favorite part about this scene, though.
Hugh and Alan. Got to keep an eye on these guys.
Yep. My favorite part of this scene, though, is when Otto twice gives Aegon advice to not grant the request. And after Hugh requests, and Otto says, and Aegon says, "Oh yeah, we should do that." Otto starts walking over to him, and Aegon goes, "It's really important that we pay our smiths so that we can continue our war efforts." And Otto's like, "All right, fine, I'll shut up. I've put
He does. He starts climbing the steps to go have a word.
Yep.
And then he stops. He's like, "Oh God!" And he turns around and goes down. It's so good.
Yeah, he really did rub Aegon the wrong way.
Which sets it up then for Larys to get his shot in. So, which we're coming up on,
right? Which is honestly, Larys is right. Here's the interesting thing: is that Larys is right that he's a bad hand for him, but he doesn't provide him with a good alternative, and it's not coming from a place of goodness.
Right. No. And are we going to talk about it now?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Next scene.
Larys approaches Aegon and suggests that Otto may be controlling him and should be replaced to avoid the mistakes of Viserys.
Big power play here, right?
Yeah. Well, see, here's the interesting thing, though. We talk about a compliment sandwich, right? And he starts off like, "Hey, Aegon, great first court. You're really in tune with the small folk, just like your dad was." Positive comparison to his dad.
Yeah.
Positive comparison to his dad. He's like, "And like your dad, Otto is really trying to strong arm you here. So maybe time for a change."
Yeah. No, I didn't even think of the compliment sandwich aspect of it, but you're so right. He's like, "Yeah, you're smart enough. You should maybe make a change. Yeah, that'd be good."
Yep.
But is he setting himself up to be hand? Is that the play?
I don't know. I mean, it depends. It depends on his play. I don't think he wants to be hand, to be honest.
That's it's curious because it's such a strong, like, if he's not going to put himself in the position of being the hand, then who would, so that he could control that person and maintain his positioning? Because I really don't think he would want to be hand. He's much better at the evil, sinister, in the shadows, cloak and daggery stuff.
Right.
Because hand, you got to be there, right? You got to be at the tourneys. You have to speak for the king when the king is, doing other stuff. Like, it's a real public facing job, as much as it is a backroom job. So it doesn't seem to me like that would be a good shot for him. But then who is he going to put in that he can puppet? Right.
I think that's the point, though, is he needs somebody who he can manipulate, or at least who won't get in his way of manipulating Alicent and Aegon.
Right. Or they're so oblivious to whatever. But a hand has to be not oblivious. Like, you've got to be on top of every detail.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I thought it was a great setup with the way that he cut down Otto.
Absolutely. Speaking of Otto, he visits Alicent hours after his presence is requested. Alicent asks for Otto's support and worries about Aegon and Aemond. She wants Otto to stop undermining her in front of her sons. She suggests that Aegon will tire of rule.
The dialogue in this was so sharp. It was so good. Their little back and forth. It's like, are we on the same side here? I don't know. What do you think what do you think are your goals? How would you define that? Like, that was so good. It was so good.
Right. That and I just really enjoyed how Alicent sort of convinces her father, I think, by the end of this section, like, they understand they understand each other, right? They both understand that they're going to be the ones ruling the kingdom once Aegon's novelty wars off.
Right. That is until the rat catchers come along. But anyway, I think you're right. I think she absolutely does get him reoriented to working on the side. But she does have some unrealistic expectations, and I think he wins a concession from her on that, because she agrees that, blood is going to have to be shed here. There's going to be violence no matter what we do.
Once Luke was dead, there was no avoiding a war.
Absolutely not.
That was just the reality of the situation, and that's unfortunate. Something that I agree with the general sentiment on is I think we were robbed of a scene where the Greens learn about Luke. I think that would have been a really tasty scene where they don't know what to do about it right away.
Yeah, small council and everybody's like, and
Aemon denying responsibility and things like that. I think that would have been really great.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting scene to see for sure.
Well, but that's all right.
Otto, boy, man, he is he's in trouble. His position is quickly eroding, I think.
I think so. Sir Eric, back in the Black Land, Sir Eric finds Mysaria stowing away and brings her to Daemon. Daemon blames her for collaborating with the Hightowers. Eric defends her and himself against the accusations of Daemon.
This is the one place where I did sort of bounce out of being in the moment, and I mentioned this at the top, where I was just suddenly like, this doesn't seem good. She's just sitting there around the corner, and it just happens to be Eric, and it just happens to be the ship, and all of that. I'm fine.
To me, this was the ship that Eric came over on.
Oh, okay.
It's only been 2 days.
Okay.
And so he would be on the ship looking around. Oh, let me go get my things from the storage. Whoa. And I think that Mysaria, after her whole, brothel was burned down and her headquarters is burned down, she figured, I'm not safe in King's Landing anymore. The hand knows.
No, that I get.
She just stowed away on the one ship she knew was leaving.
And just sitting there easily found. I don't know. It just seemed a little all too convenient for me, which, again...
She ran out of food, right? Yeah, I think there's a million reasons it could happen. I don't need a full explanation.
Anyway, not a big deal. But yeah, so Daemon has a big card to play here with her.
Yeah, he does. And do you blame her for collaborating with the Hightowers?
No, I mean, can you blame Rhaenys for not ending the Greens in one go? I mean, she's playing the position she had. She was profiting. I mean, I like the fact that she was straight up honest about it. She's like, "Look, I profited from it. This is transactional. Like, I don't care what you guys do. I'm trying to do something for the small folk." And yeah, no, that all tracked for me. I liked her positioning and how she was advocating for herself. It was very clean, very straight up.
And the way Eric then comes out and defends her, Daemon goes, "Well, you know what? You fought with the Greens for a bit too." He's like, "Yeah, I started this when I was 8 years old. I don't want to betray my oaths, and I tried not to. But once I saw what was happening, I came here."
Yeah, and I swore an oath to protect the royal family, right?
Right.
That is the whole shebang. So, what? Yeah, and the moment that it went, yeah, you're right. The moment that
I am right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rhaenyra returns to Dragonstone and tells Daemon she found the remains of Luke. Daemon offers to go to Harrenhal, and Rhaenys gives an update on the blockade. Rhaenyra says her forward line, "I want Aemon Targaryen," and walks away. Daemon offers Mysaria her freedom in exchange for information.
Good thing Daemon had Mysaria right there, I guess, in a way. Is a good thing, bad thing? I don't know. It was an unexpected advantage for him to be able to capitalize on that.
Well, I think he knew who to go to in King's Landing. The information he needed is, do you have a 24/7 dry cleaner that can do a rush job on my murder cloak?
True. Good point.
I mean, once he dons that cloak, trouble's afoot.
The trouble is afoot. So, yeah, this is a really interesting too, because they're like, okay, here's our strategic position, and this is what we've got going on. And she's like, no, fuck all that. I want, I want one thing and one thing only.
Right. Vengeance
for my son.
Amazing performance from Emma Darcy.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the back and forth with everybody, everybody giving their updates and this little council meeting. It felt like, I'm on a Teams call at work or something like that. Everyone's doing their updates, but then one person is just a little unhinged today and might be going nuclear on everybody.
Something I forgot to mention earlier when Rhaenyra was out searching for the remains, there was one clip of one of those scenes where she really looked a lot like Dany from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Her hair was weathered. I think it was that part where she was off wild riding the dragon out when she was lost.
I think
for
she
a while.
was looking at the fishermen find Luke. I think that's okay. That was because I remember having that same thought.
Yeah, and the way her jacket was fitting on her body, and the way her hair and her face, and it was really powerful for me in that moment. I was like, whoa, that looks like Daenerys.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Jace returns to Dragonstone and reports they obtained the support of the Vale in exchange for a dragon to guard it, and that Cregan Stark has promised 2,000 men, but really he just wanted to hug his mom.
Man, this scene made me cry.
It was rough. The way he's excellent acting from Jace too.
So good.
The way
good on both of
his
parts.
voice is breaking. He's trying to be dutiful.
Yeah,
and
professional.
Just mother knows best, right?
Yeah.
I even made a GIF of this hug because I thought it was moving.
It was so good. Yeah.
And again, really wordless from Rhaenyra.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, in interwoven scenes, Alicent lights candles for the fallen, including Lucerys, and Rhaenyra holds a funeral pyre for Luke.
Beautiful mirroring. We got a bunch of this similar type of setup in season 1, where different characters would be doing things simultaneously, and they would contrast it with each other. And the fact that Alicent lit a candle for Luke, I don't know, really gave the whole setup that extra little something, right? Okay, it's one thing, they're whatever, but then when she pauses and thinks about it, says, Luke's name, it really made it special.
Yeah, I do like how complicated they're making Alicent. She doesn't want a war. She wants, and she understands a mother's grief for her child too.
Yeah.
She understands how much that must have hurt Rhaenyra.
And she's still pissed that, there was never any reparations for what's his name's eye.
I mean, there have been now, though, right? Like, that's the thing, and we'll talk about it in a second. But Aemond is promised vengeance by Otto. What other vengeance does he need after that?
Mm-hmm.
That was the vengeance. If you wanted vengeance, you got it.
Right. And and that's it. Yeah.
Everyone's so messed up. Everyone needs therapy. And you can too with Better. I'm just kidding. It's not our sponsor, I promise.
We're not sponsored by them.
Daemon dons his murder cloak and arrives in King's Landing. He brings an offering to a member of the Gold Cloaks named Blood in history, who brings Daemon to Aegon's rat catcher Cheese, who knows the tunnels of the Red Keep. He asks the two of them to kill Aemon Targaryen. The rat catcher asks, what if they can't find him? And Daemon smirks.
You pointed this out to me last night in our hot takes, and I had missed that altogether. That because when they then didn't find him, I was like, wait, what are you guys doing? Like, this is ridiculous. I missed by a mile the fact that he gave them that little smirk. Like, well, I don't know. Do what you got to do.
Figure it out.
Do what you got to do.
Figure it out. Improvise.
And they did, and now, boy, oh man, this is going to have consequences.
It sure will. I mean, no, I don't think Rhaenyra is going to be happy about this, right? This is obviously going to come back to bite Daemon from every side.
He's a baby. Yeah, it's just terrible. But anyway, yeah, the fact that I don't know, this whole setup was great. I love these two characters. I love the way that Daemon shows up. Daddy's home. You remember me?
Right.
It was all really good, and the fact that he could just waltz in there. They're on a war footing, and he just walks in and has no problem.
Well, he has a murder cloak on. He's basically invisible.
Right, there you go. Is that a D&D object that you can get?
I guess so. You're the D&D guy.
Murder cloak.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a really important thing going forward to remember that Daemon still has a lot of love from the Gold Cloaks.
Yes.
The City Watch have a lot of love for Daemon.
Yeah, because he treated him right and gave him power and gave him identity. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, and somebody could write in and correct me, but I'm pretty sure he's the one who gave them the gold cloaks.
I think he was. Yeah, I think you're right.
He's the one who made it from like a ragtag thing to a uniformed body that actually felt pride.
Yeah, that had, and he trained him, and they trained for quite a long time because that was part of the discussions at one of the councils that, he was away for a long time and they trained him and everything like that. So, sure.
Yeah. Well, the smirking is going to have consequences.
I got a bunch of background noise. I'm moving around my... Sorry, more markers for you.
It's all right.
Okay.
Well, the smirking is going to have its consequences. By the way, I wanted to mention, we're calling them Blood and Cheese because that's what the subtitles called them, but the show deliberately did not give them names. And the reason I think is that in the book, they say, well, they were known in history as Blood and Cheese. Like their names were lost to history because they were small folk. And they want the Greens wanted them to be forgotten, right? Because these were the people who killed a prince.
Yeah.
And
that
so
makes sense.
I'm glad that the show is not naming them and just letting us call them Blood and Cheese.
Somebody, I think, was it Davey Mack or somebody in our Discord posted an emoji of cheese and drops of blood. I was like, what? Yeah. What is this? And what? That doesn't make any sense. And it's like, and then I'm like, oh, now I got it.
Right. Well, let's go back to a less brutal scene before we go into the main event of the episode, I'd say. Aemond and Kristen plan the war campaign. Aemond laments that he's being blamed for starting the war after Alicent and the council plotted to usurp the throne. Otto enters and sends Kristen away. He scolds Aemond for planning the war without the king and urges Aemond to keep a grip on his impulses when Aegon cannot.
The conversation between Aemond and Kristen was really interesting. And because I don't think Aemond has a clue of what's going on between Kristen and Alicent, his mom. And their opinions, their individual point of views on the same person was so interesting because Kristen's like, you couldn't say a lot, right? I'm stooping your mom, and I don't necessarily agree with you. And I'm the Kingsguard. I'm the head of the Kingsguard, and we're illicitly planning the war here. Like it was a very cool conversation from a plot drama standpoint.
Yeah. And I love this line that was all over the trailers, and they just were milking this one for all it had. But it's a great line. She holds love for our enemy. That makes her a fool.
That is a good line. That is
really shows Aemond's thinking about this war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's really empowered by this conflict. And I think he really senses that, the ladder of chaos here that can, he gets to be a hero. He thinks he's going to be a hero. He finally gets to, do a bunch of fighty stuff. Like, I think he's really relishing the coming war.
And, Kristen says, speaking as someone who knows your mother intimately, Rhaenyra weaves these webs. It's like, what webs did she weave? She just asked you to have sex and then tried to keep your same arrangement going and denied you. He really is an incel, right?
Yeah.
He's just,
right.
And I guarantee you, if Alicent ever sexually rejects him, that's the end of all their relationship.
Mm. Yeah, he wanted to be all pouty and let's go off to the far lands and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, dude, very, very unrealistic.
Yeah, hopefully he learned his lesson and he's not going to be like, Allison, let's flee to Dorne.
Silly man. Anyway, it was really interesting to hear their tactical conversation though too about like, oh, we can do that. So
Right.
and then when Otto comes in and he's like sniffing around, he's like, I know what you boys are up to.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Lord Commander, don't you have other places you need to be?
I know. Well,
but he's not in the right place though.
I know. He's just never in the right place, is he? So let's move on to the main event. Are you braced? Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Blood and Cheese head into the tunnels to the Red Keep and find the king drunk with his bros. Blood and Cheese get into a scuffle when Cheese doesn't know his way to and around the royal quarters. Blood gets caught by a servant and heads back to Cheese, who has Helena at knife point. They ask her which child is the boy, and she offers them her necklace. When they ask again, she points to one in bed and holds her other child. They kill the child she pointed to, and Helena flees with the other into Allison's chambers, where she and Kristen are getting it on. She tells them they killed the boy.
Dun dun dun. Fade to black. Cut to black, actually. Yeah, it didn't blow me away. I know you asked me last night, is this like, did this hit like the Red Wedding hit? And it didn't for me in that way. It was more incremental in a way. We just moved everything. We moved the tension and everything up more, and it's going to be more the fallout. I guess I wasn't horrified or shocked by this necessarily.
Well, let me tell you, I've been looking at this interview with Ryan Condal where he talked about the changes from the book. Because I thought that the book did the horror of it better. And the reason is that there was a choice in the book. And this is that. So there in the book, there are 3 children of Helena and Aegon, and they have a younger son named Maelor. And Ryan Condal confirmed this, because they compressed it from a 30-year time frame to a 20-year time frame, they couldn't fit in a third kid. And they said, okay, there's just one son and one daughter.
That makes sense.
And so they couldn't do the choice. But in the book, they have Maelor and Jaehaerys, and they say, in front of, by the way, a tied up Helena and a tied up Alicent.
Oh.
Yeah, she's there too.
Wow,
and they say, Helena, pick which one you want us to kill. She picks her young son, Maelor, and then they kill Jaehaerys anyway. So she gets to keep the one, and he's old enough, by the way, to understand. I think he's like 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
And so she has to look this kid in the eye for the rest of his life. Well, he knows that she gave him up to die.
That's really messed up.
I think the psychological horror of that trumps the gore of this version.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But I understand that they box themselves in with this time frame.
Okay, right. And it's just going to cascade more problems. We already talked about it a little bit, and I get that in terms of the security of the royal quarters, I get that there's secret passages and servants' ways and this kind of stuff, but no checkpoints. Nobody going, wait, you're not the usual rat checkers, before rat catchers. Why, why
one
are you
is
in this way? No, but he says he doesn't go to that. He says there's other rat catchers that work that part of it, but nobody's standing guard at any of these doors or passageways. Mm-hmm. Or confirming any of this stuff. There's no guards in the hallways when the servant girl runs out. There's no immediate response, and it's not until Helena ends up in the queen, in the queen mother's bedrooms, do we find anybody who is of a protecting nature, and he's completely indisposed.
Well, so, you've got one of the 7 most elite warriors in Westeros who's set to defend the Foyle family. The royal family, and of course, he's just completely failing at his job. This guy deserves the most dishonorable of discharges.
Seriously.
And he will not get it. Alicent will defend him till the end.
This is just a really, really bad situation. And and as we pointed before, Laris's, what's Laris's culpability here? What's Kristen Cole's and how are they going to, like, where were you, Kristen Cole? Like,
Right.
well, I was,
I was over there.
Yeah, and Helena's seen him now there,
Yeah,
so
although I don't think she's a tattletale. I think she's just gonna be like, the trees are green, right? She's gonna say something out of pocket.
Throw some more crazy,
right? Yeah. Just throw some more crazy into the air. But yeah, and Kristen, he's such a bad dude.
Yeah,
he's just such a bad dude, and I'm so upset at him.
We got to rewind a little bit though with Aegon and his bros hanging out on.
Excellent scene.
That was so funny.
Excellent. Aegon the dragon cock, the insatiable.
Just the idea that they're just hanging out in and around the throne in that way. I mean, that throne is deadly, right? You do not want to get nicked by it. I mean, isn't that part of the lore? Like,
yeah,
it would regularly cut and harm people just by sitting in it.
That's literally how his dad got his infection.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So just great world building, great 3-dimensional character, just showing us who this guy is and who his bros are. It was all really.
They've got Milk of the Poppy gummies, and they're having a great time. Having a great time. Yeah, that was a really fun scene for them to walk through. I think.
Yeah, and he's just like, don't act natural. Don't look at them. Keep your head down, and because we're invisible to them, right? We're small folk. We're functionaries. We're doing a job, and they're going to ignore us. They're too busy with their own situation to bother us.
Do you think that Helena's performance was appropriate? This is a debate online right now.
Meaning what?
The actor's performance of her being basically despondent instead of horrified, instead of loudly horrified.
I don't know. It didn't read off base to me. I didn't find it compelling, but I didn't also find it. It didn't fall so far off the mark that I noticed it. So no, I guess that's my answer.
Yeah, it felt very in character for me.
Yeah,
to have her become frozen instead of violent in trauma, and that's a valid trauma response. That's something many people go through.
You can't. I think this whole idea of, well, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that? I think that is you can have the thought because you're like, how would I respond in a similar situation? But actually, none of us can know how we're actually going to respond until we're in those kinds of situations.
Right.
It's once your flight responses kick in and it overrides your thinking mind, we don't know how we're going to respond. So I think it's unfair to judge her that way. She was faced with an impossible situation. Now, are we talking about the actor's performance and portrayal, or are we talking about the character's?
I think the actor's performance here.
Okay. I think Helena, I don't know, the way that she was portraying her didn't seem off base to me in any way. So
yeah, this is Fia Saban, if I'm pronouncing her name right.
The actor's right. Yeah, name. No, I didn't detect a sad note, or I mean, not a sad note, a sour note, but yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Just tragic all around, and man, what a way to close the episode for Father's Day.
When the episode ended, it caught me. I hadn't looked at my clock, my watch. I hadn't, seen where we were on the timeline. I think you had messaged me to say that you had been done, and I knew we were getting close, but it completely caught me off guard.
Yeah, I skipped the recap, and I think that's how I ended up ahead of you.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Well, anyway, that's the episode.
Good stuff.
Really good first episode, and I knew Blood and Cheese was coming at least in episodes 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that we got it out of the way in episode 1, because now I think we can have a lighter note for a little while.
Fair enough, if you want to call it that.
Sure. A son for a son. All right.
Eye for an eye. I like this whole thing of well, you did this whole tit for tat thing. You did this, so I need that. Well, you did that, now I'm going to need this, right? This is this incremental hurts where nobody can back off or forgive or allow grace or to recognize the validity of another person's point of view. And so as we keep escalating and escalating, just increases the tension and the conflict until it spirals out of control. And then once at that point, you have to let all of that energy unwind out of the system, which means a lot of death and destruction or things settle back down again.
Yeah. Well, David, let's get some other voices in here. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get into listener feedback. We're back with more House of the Dragon. We've got a lovely feedback, a jam-packed slew of feedback, a dragon's load of feedback. I'm going to stop saying different things.
That's a lot of feedback.
It is a lot of feedback. And you too can add to our feedback by writing into hotd@thelorehounds.com, by going to the website, thelorehounds.com, and going to the contact page. You can leave us a voicemail even. It's a lot of fun. Or you can tag us on Discord and say, hey, Lorehounds, I want you guys to read this on air.
A couple of notes. We got a couple of feedback emails where people were sending to our main email address, which is lorehounds@. No problem. We got those. But then also just remember, we do have one special. And the reason I'm pointing that is because one of our lore masters, our dragon master, if you will, Nancy M, volunteered. She was like, hey, I want to really help and be involved in some way. And we're like, cool. Like, feedback is one of those tasks when we're prepping for our shows that is a really time-consuming thing, and getting it all copied and pasted and outlined in a way that we can process it. So Nancy M, thank you so much for volunteering and saying you wanted to get involved, and we really appreciate it. And thank you for putting together this thing. And all of y'all, when you send in your emails to the hotd@thelorehounds.com, Nancy's going to get a copy of it. John and I get copies as well, but Nancy will as well. And then she's going to be able to take that and format it. So if we get them to those right addresses, it just makes the whole workflow a lot better. She's also skimming the Discord and plucking out some good comments. So if you want, tag us or tag her. She's 2 kids, 2 dogs on the Discord. So and she's organized it for us. She's put it into little thematic orders, and groupings and everything. So yeah, really, really huge help.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nancy. It really is a big help. I love reading feedback. I hate compiling it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
It really is. Yes. Because you got to go back. Did I get it all? And I got to format it so we can read it. Da, 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 da. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but thank you.
All right. So David, my throat is more sore than Kristen Cole's after a hard day.
Oh, come on.
All right, I'll do a less dirty one. My throat is more sore than Rhaenyra after crying all day.
I was going to say, you're leaving that in, I hope. But
I'm leaving it in.
I thought you were going to do some sort of dragon Dracarys joke or something. So,
all right, give me the feedback.
Happy to run you through. So, a first comment that we had, Claire sent in an email, and she had a question about the Seasons Pass and Hot D show guide. Hello, I bought the Hot D Season Pass. Wonderful. I really appreciate it. However, I think I found an error. I don't think Tywin Lannister is House Westerling. Shouldn't he be from House Lannister instead? Thanks for your excellent work. John, is that
I fixed it already.
Oh, perfect.
So thank you
so much. Yeah.
If anyone sees something and they're like, "Oh, that doesn't seem accurate," it's just a typographical error. Go point it out to us. Feel free.
Except today, I took a screenshot and I made all these underlines, and I was like, "Isn't Jaehaerys and his sister like?" I thought you had said both Jaehaerys and what's his sister's name? Jaehaera, and it was just my brain because I couldn't parse George R. Martin's naming schemes.
I mean, having 2 children named Jaehaerys and Jaehaera, that should be illegal.
It's egregious. It's egregious.
Well, thanks, Claire, for the correction.
Yeah. And like John said, if you guys see anything or you want anything added in there, give us a shout, drop us an email or ping us on the Discord. So back in the world of House of the Dragon, Nicole B posted a message on our Patreon board in response to our bonus content that we did, the hot takes. As far as lorehounding goes, having read Fire and Blood, there is something extra special and satisfying about watching the show's version of events versus the way A Song of Ice and Fire history is written. When I realized the mission was about Aemon, it added an extra layer to an already rich tapestry, pun intended, of storytelling. I was hot lore summer is on. There it is.
Yeah, but by the way, I didn't mention that. That is a thing, and I appreciate you pointing that out, Nicole, is that in the book, it's not said that Daemon sent them to get Aemon. They just said that he sent them to get a son. So this definitely lowers the culpability level of Daemon.
Okay.
Daemon.
I thought it was...
I'm saying... Now, I can't stop putting the D's on the back of the names.
Mm-hmm. Sorry?
I said Daemon instead of...
Daemon.
Instead of combining Aemon and Daemon. All right, go ahead.
We didn't really talk about it, but when Blood and Cheese get into Aemon's room and he's, Blood is collecting up the coins off the map, I was tense. I was like, is Aemon going to walk in and we're going to have an awesome fight scene? Like,
they would be dead immediately.
But it would have been like awesome to see that. I really want to see Aemon get into into a fight. I want to see what he's got.
I just don't think it would have been a fight. I think it would have just been a slaughter.
Yeah, I was ready. I was prepared for it. I was absolutely prepared for it. All right, next up is Severin on the Discord. He wanted to say, I do like the added character humor so far in this season. So
yeah, agreed.
We mentioned that before. Yeah, that it really does help the storyline when we've got a little bit of extra, because it's so dark at times. Aaron K on the Discord also said, I'm excited for the tapestry. It's a cool choice. Wonder if they'll stick with it for the rest of the series or if they will switch it up every season. Now, you said there's going to be, this is a 3-season story?
Yeah, that's what they've said to us. So
okay.
Hopefully they'll stick with it because I think this is a good pace for the series.
I like the fact that we will have a beginning, middle, and end, like literally. I think that's really good. Tell a story, know where you want to tell the story, and wrap it up. Right?
Yeah,
that's
definitely
really important. Switching locales to Winterfell and the Starks, Athena A on the Discord said, "Gah, nothing like music and accents to get me really in the mood for being in Winterfell again." John, did you feel enlivened by seeing the Wall and Winterfell?
The Stark theme, nothing gets me in the feels like that. I mean, I literally, if you listen to our preseason rewatch of season 1, I literally at one point when Game of Thrones was on wrote a song about Jon Snow reuniting with Sansa and that music's falling in the moment. So I'm someone who likes the Starks. I'll say that. Okay. And I forgot how much I missed this area.
They really set us up nicely while tracking the Raven. Like, where are we going? Where's this? What is this Raven doing?
I know. I had to make a GIF of it.
Yes, it was really good. And then as it crests the hill, we're like, oh, it was perfect.
Yeah. That was nice.
Vanessa also on the Discord said that was such a great way to start the season. Cregan and Jace were actually close to the same age, but here he seemed a bit younger and naive. Cregan is a smart man and has been through more at this point. It was an excellent idea to bring Jace up to the Wall and tell him about the dragons who wouldn't go past it to prove a point. Plus, Otto seriously thinks a Stark would break an oath?
Yeah. I think Otto's a little foolish there. But yeah, I think that was great to be like, hey, I need the people for winter. And and make Jace believe it, right? Show him with his own eyes.
Right. Yeah. 2,000 graybeards.
Also, for the record, it's not a short journey to the Wall. Like that wasn't a day trip. That wasn't a field trip. That was like an overnight camp.
Yeah. Well, and I think weren't you saying that in the book, he's there much longer and
not at the Wall necessarily, but in Winterfell in the north.
In Winterfell, in general. And he would have, and he took his time. He had to make a couple of stops on the way. So yeah, this was
well, we know he went to the Vale. How did he do all this in like 3 days?
Yeah, that was.
I mean, it was a little jetpacking.
He was efficient.
I know he has a dragon, but still, it just felt like he had more banter with Cregan than he did.
Right. Focusing on Blood and Cheese for a moment, we got an email from Red Zippy 330. Hey, Lisa. Alas, we meet Blood and Cheese at the end of this episode. I do think Daemon will told them to kill any royal son if they could not find Prince Aemond. While Aemond did not intend to kill Luke, Daemon will have no problem killing, well, anyone and everyone. Looking forward to spending this season with this wonderful community. Thanks for all the hard work you all put into the show, and I know that enriches my enjoyment of the show. Well, Red Zippy, thank you so much for writing in, and we hope to hear from you a bit more. John, any thoughts about her email?
I don't think Damon gave them any further instruction. I think the smirk was the further instruction, was figure it out.
Right.
A son for a son. If anything, it was a son for a son.
Because he knew that Aemond is a tough order to fill.
Yeah.
I was surprised he didn't go himself in a way. Like, you know,
I think he didn't want to risk himself. I really do think that Daemon understands how dangerous Aemond is.
Okay.
That and I think the other reason is there's no way he could have snuck into the Red Keep unrecognized.
True. If
he's just
even
well
one
known.
person got his hair.
He needed nobodies to go in and a nobody that would be recognized as often in that keep.
Yeah, that's true. Looks like Red Zippy also added a comment on Discord that Nancy picked up. So did Elena decide to serve up the heir in order to spare the boy from how his father will treat him and he won't have to be king?
Interesting.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to answer that question. Just in general, like why did she choose her choice? Like, what informed her choice?
My philosophy is twofold. One, she had the vision; she knew it was going to happen. Right, she knew there was no stopping it.
Right.
Second would be the only reason they were making her make the distinction was so that they didn't have to, rustle around in the kids' cribs, figure out which genitals they had, and then wake them up and cause a scene.
Right. But they were trying to be quick about it.
Right. But once they kill the girl, if they figure out that that's the girl, they might kill both. So she's like, well, I'm going to lose one at least.
That's really good.
I'll just make sure it's the one that they want.
To save myself and my daughter. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's terrible. I mean, it's horrible, terrible situation. But the fact that she could work that out, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Nate, our good friend Nate, who helped us out a lot on our Shogun coverage, on the Discord says, Rhaenyra ordered a hit on the specific green who killed her son. Blood and Cheese killed another green's son, but a child, not the full adult who was the intended target. What makes it into the history books is that Rhaenyra ordered a hit and a small child was brutally killed.
Mm-hmm.
And we're back to medieval men writing history with a bias that blames women for the worst possible outcomes. John, what do you think?
Well, that, and I think that the Maester here is on Team Green, right? The Grand Maester. Okay. So I think a lot of the writings that the book's pulling from, because you got to remember the whole book, Fire and Blood, is supposed to be the writings of a later Maester.
Right.
So I think that just things are being recorded from the perspective of Alicent and the perspective of Helena.
And the fact that there's the built-in bias is against having a woman as the head of state.
Right.
That's baked into the whole society, and you're not going to change that in a generation or two. That's a multi-generational change.
I agree.
Abby on the Discord. Hi, Abby. How you doing? Hope you're well. I know you were excited. I saw Abby was tweeting and posting. She was super excited for this world, for this show.
Oh, yeah. She speaks Valyrian. I only speak Pig Valyrian, but she speaks Valyrian. High awesome. Valyrian.
That is awesome. Abby on the Discord says, they also blamed Mysaria for plotting revenge, the history writing maesters, as it were. It was clear in the show that she had no taste for any kind of plotting and just gave Daemon info in exchange for her freedom. It's on him what he does and what he orders.
I'm sorry, but this comment reminds me of a thing in Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry David's talking to somebody and he's like, "Have you plotted?" She goes, "Yeah, I've plotted. I do some plotting.
I do some plotting from time to time.
Some light plotting." But yeah,
So,
I totally agree. I think that all of this is just let's blame the women involved. Let's blame the Team Black. I mean, look, it's not a good look. You did hire someone and you know, if you commit a crime, if you go and rob a bank and someone gets killed but you didn't kill them, you're often still charged with the murder.
Yeah.
Like there's collateral damage that should be foreseen as the consequence of the crime that you're doing.
Exactly.
I think if you hire a murderer and they kill an unintended target, then that would be still your fault.
Still on you. Yeah. All right. A few notes about some characters. We'll start with Team Green here. Kyle M. sent us an email. I'm torn on Alicent. Sometimes it seems like she wants to do the right thing to avoid war and destruction and letting the men around her scheme their way into both. But she also has to get some blame here, probably on account of raising two of the most awful children you'll ever see on television. It's tricky, and it might be why we saw her spend a not insignificant amount of this episode shacking up with dreamboats and washing the same spot on her shoulder in the bathtub with an intensity that implies that she's trying to scrub away a lifetime's worth of torment. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on completely the same page on this. And what's tragic to me is that now Alicent has finally, in the past couple of days, opened her up to sex for pleasure. And she is immediately going to be in, well, if I didn't do that, my grandchild would still be alive.
Oh, God.
It's going to be so much more laced with shame. Oh, God, it's going to be bad.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Thanks for pointing out the horribleness of this situation.
Oh, yeah. Did I need to tell you that this was a
No, that's why, if you're listening to an hour and a half plus long podcast about it, you're here for it.
Right.
Oh, it looks like Red Zippy is back again with another email. Larys has spies all over the Red Keep, and he's told Alicent this. So he has to know Alicent and Kristen are fooling around since Larys is making a play to usurp Otto and be the hand of the king. We're not sure what his play is.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
He definitely wants, we know that he definitely wants to upend Otto, but like, what can we say who's going to be in that position? He can tell King Aegon, your son would not have been killed if the commander of the King's Guard was doing his job and securing the castle and not screwing your mother. That will plant a big wedge, which I will enjoy 1,000%. Alicent will blame herself as she should. So that's also a point there. But Larys is this is going to splash back on Larys as well, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know because it's supposed to be covert that Larys is subbing out people, right? He's had.
But what's his position in court if people don't?
Yeah, that's true.
What's his actual position?
Oh, he's Master of Whispers, I think. I think that's his official title.
Is it official? Like, yeah, can you be there's an oxymoron there.
Well, if only we had a show guide that had his official title in it. Let's check it. Okay. All right. Character guide. We're on Team Green. We're on Larys Strong. He is the Lord Confessor. That is his current title.
Very good. Lord Confessor. That's a very disgusting and terrifying name.
Yep.
Title. So. All right, Athena A is back again too. So Aegon has buddies surrounding him on the throne, which I think is nice, especially young rulers in English history, at least, usually had a clique of friends and young nobles jockeying for favor. Yeah, so I think that really hits at the realism of the world that they're building here, that he's going to have his buddies that are going to be wanting to be close to the center of power and all enjoying the privileges that affords.
This scene just made me want the Dunk and Egg series more.
Really?
Because I don't know if you know the main premise, but the gist is a young heir to the throne stumbles upon a hedge knight, like somebody who's he's not sworn to a lord, he has no nobility. He was just knighted by a knight on his deathbed. And he runs into him and they go on adventures together.
Yeah, it seems it's like what was that show last year? I can't remember what it was now. But yeah, it just seems like an adventure of the week one.
Yeah, it's a buddy comedy.
Yeah. It looks like fun. What was the show? It was never mind.
Was it
I
the
can't remember.
Natasha Lyonne one? Was that the one?
Yes, that's the one it was. That's the one
Okay.
it was. Yeah. That
Very
one looks
nice.
like it. Maybe, if it's like anything like that, we'll have fun with it. All right. Changing our focus over to Team Black really quick. Red Zippy again. Email. Maybe this was one long email because Nancy's doing this, so she's chopping it up for us. So this is great. I love these thematic twists.
Me too.
This is really good. It
Thanks,
gives
Nancy.
it a little bit more vibe. Red Zippy says, great episode. Damon is going to be screwing things up so bad this season. His dynamic with Rhaenyra is chef's kiss. I love being back on the wall and starting the show with that scene between Jace and Cregan. Didn't realize Jace and his sisters and his later scene when he returns home to his mother with updates, trying not to show his despair over losing his brother. That was so moving. These two are the best parent-child relationships on the show, probably the healthiest relationship of kind overall.
Agreed.
It really, yeah, and you pointed this out, like when he's standing there trying to hold it together and he just can't. Oh man, that was really.
Just
really
look at the difference between how Rhaenyra interacts with her kid compared to Alicent.
Didn't she like beat Aegon?
Yeah, and she called him an imbecile when he tried to open up to her. Do you love me? You
Imbecile.
complete imbecile. What?
Terrible.
She's just not a good mom. She never has been. Yeah.
Well, and they communicated that to us in season 1 where she's holding the baby and the baby's crying and she's like, and a nursemaid comes over and she's like, get this thing away from me.
Right. Like when the child's crying, like, I mean, look, sometimes you pass it to the other parent because you're like, I need a minute, and that's fine.
Right.
But then you take the baby back. You eventually you have to make up the baby a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Over to Alicent and Kristen Cole. Cyrus on the Discord, friend of the pod. To me, it was coded as something they may have jumped into after the king's death. Before Vizzy, Alicent was always seemed to be devoted to him, so I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I'm with that. I think pious Alicent plays by the literal rules, although still technically, an unsanctioned, out of wedlock sexual affair. So I think still she would judge anybody else for it, but it's okay if she does it.
Yeah, and again, if anybody but Kristen Cole.
Right.
It would have been fine. Anybody who's wearing a white cloak, no, like off limits.
Could have been a rock.
How can you?
We would have been okay with it. Like, great, good for you.
Right. Nancy M., our feedback master on the Discord. Emily Carr was on the official Hot D podcast that dropped after last night's episode. She believes her character was interested in Cole from the first time she saw him at the tourney in the opening episode of season 1. That's interesting. It would be because I remember both the girls were like, oh, like who's this guy or whatever, but I didn't actually. Yeah, it was like that. It was like, oh, it wasn't. So it'd be interesting to go back and catch that. But
he's a handsome man.
Yeah,
it's kind of the only thing he has going for him.
Yeah. Jean, our good friend.
No, I'm not done. There is no one I hate in this show more than Kristen Cole. Now I'm done.
He's deserving. Jean, Alicia says Jean and her are going to get back out. They've got some MCU content in planning, so look forward
getting the band back together.
That's right. Jean says Alicent and Kristen are two of the most unlikable people that I've ever had the joy of meeting on TV. They flat out deserve each other. I think that's the common sentiment. And Athena A on Discord says Kristen Cole's just really drawn to Alicent's pure image, despite the fact that he is once more oath-breaking and putting himself in the exact same situation that caused him to hate Rhaenyra in the first place. Alicent was like, guess my husband is dead for 5 minutes and I can do whatever I want now.
Right. Dude's not even cold.
No. Like, that was quick. Was that the first time? The first time that we're seeing it, is that the first time that they were together? That's not the first time.
I don't think so. No, I think there was definitely like we shouldn't, Kristen.
That would be interesting. Who made the first move?
Kristen. I think. I think they probably had like a conversation that got very intimate and they both just leaned into it. That's my headcanon.
Right. They got close like two magnets and then click and it just happened. Yeah.
Right.
I can see that.
I hate my son. I hate your son. Oh, and then they just start making out,
Let's boots. Let's not boots. Dragons. Furley says on the Discord, friend of the pod, loved all the dragons in this episode. John, what did you make of the dragons? This
looked great. I mean, Vagar, I think that was the clearest shot we had of Vagar and it looked awesome. And then just the way that Cyrax is grieving, even if it's not Cyrax's kid, this is one of the junior Dragon Patrol that she's always with. I think beautiful, beautiful scene. Just mirroring their grief together was beautiful.
Well, I hope they will strategically use their CGI budget to give us good dragons, and we don't ever have not good dragon CGI.
Yep.
So, Marilyn R. Pukila, our favorite Tolkien scholar on Discord, wrote to say, turns out there may be a connection between J.R.R. Tolkien and Hot D.
I would say many, but
she says, give a listen to the Rest is History podcast from June 16th, 2024, entitled simply Dragons. You'll find a number of wonderful historical meanderings concerning the historical and literary origins of dragons, how they shaped and unfolded, and how they came to occupy so much of today's zeitgeists. I can't offer you a link because they don't have their links on any website. So, okay, you just have to Google or just a podcast search. Oh, yeah, she says this. So pick your favorite podcatcher and look for them. The Rest is History and enjoy their most recent episode. And then Cyrus follows up and says, Gurm has mentioned numerous times that his dragons are inspired by Tolkien's dragons. Hence, his dragons have 4 limbs, 2 wings, and 2 feet, like Tolkien's dragons. In other sources, such creatures would have been referred to as worms, as dragons would have had 6 limbs total, 2 wings, and 4 feet. All right, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know any of that. That's very cool.
Yeah, there's a whole, there's wyverns, we use the word dragon very broadly.
Pretty generically.
Yeah.
Like tree.
Yeah.
There's birches, there's larches, there's,
gooses, geeses. All right. Now it's too late. Now I'm going into Willy Wonka mode. But yeah, thank you,
we getting punchy?
I appreciate that. I mean, I've literally talked about Caningulus like several times this episode. I just,
2 hours in. All right. Last 2 comments. Rocky Z has the last word. They need some type of sign when flying dragons to show that they're friendly so that they don't get shot at accidentally, which we were talking about before, like, flying something. And then loved how Cyrax can empathize with Rhaenyra.
Yeah, and then there's that added layer of it might be her child, her dragon child. But yeah, I think even if not, I mean, we saw Vagar empathize with Laena in season 1. I think this is very possible.
This opens up the whole aspect, which is undealt with, which I like that there's a little bit of not clarity around this. What is the relationship between the dragon rider and the dragon and the egg and all of this stuff? It's very vague. They don't even really know themselves. And I like all of that, that it's a little bit of a mystery, because otherwise it's into other genres. This is how you tame your dragon. This is how you ride your dragon.
Right.
So.
Right.
Well, all right, John, that wraps it up for feedback. So again, hotd@thelorehounds.com. Send us a voicemail, go to the website, and say hi to Nancy M when you write in. Thank you, Nancy, for all of your work. This was really great. This made it so much easier. So
absolutely
awesome.
Thank you, Nancy. Well, David, I've got plenty of announcements to make on what's coming this week on the Lorehounds.
Is it a hot lore summer?
It's hot lore summer. You're here on House of the Dragon. You know we're doing that. Come back next week. If you want the hot takes on Sunday night, which I think we'll probably do that again.
Okay. Cool. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was. If you want the hot takes on Sunday night, if you want the show guide, if you want early and ad-free access, you'll have to sign up for Patreon. Doctor Who,
Supercast, or a season pass.
Right. Doctor Who is ending the season this week with season 1, episode 9, Empire of Death.
You guys are having fun.
I know. We did full coverage on this show.
That's great.
On a whim.
You're like, yeah, why not? That's true Lorehound. That is true blue Lorehound.
I think it's such a passion project of mine. Like, I love Doctor Who. It's so silly and fun.
And I'm so glad that Lisa is as into it as you are, so that you guys can just nerd out hard. That's just great.
Alicia and I are having a great time. I mean, we have to. Oh, actually, we're not covering the season finale this week. I have to change that in the show notes. We're covering. You got 2 episode 8. We're covering episode 8, but the season finale is coming out this week. That's why I wrote that. Right. Season 1, episode 8. It brings back a classic Who villain from the Tom Baker era, actually.
Ooh,
so it's very exciting. Yeah, I know. That's why I was thinking of you. The Acolyte is going to be back this week. Alicia and I are covering that over on the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast. Also, the Lorehounds feed and the Lorehounds Star Wars feed.
I might jump in from time to time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a great season. It's going really well. Silmarillion Stories.
8 episodes for that, and we're 3 in, right?
Yep.
So,
yep.
Okay.
Silmarillion Stories is back this month for episode 15, The Return of the Noldor Part 2 with Maester Anthony.
Cool.
Maester Anthony, and he brought a guest, so stay tuned for that.
Fun. I heard you on on Aaron's podcast.
Oh, yeah. I did that.
That was really good. That was a really good conversation. I like it when we get to talk to him.
He's a good guy. I'm actually going to be recording with him tomorrow night because we're recording August's episode of Silmarillion Stories.
Okay.
I'm recording them out of order right now because of the way scheduling worked. I'm recording 2 Silmarillion stories this week. But
getting them in the can, really important.
Yep. So this is going to be a monthly thing. I'm not letting it slip. All right. On Patreon, of course, you get the hot take. Rings and Rituals. Oh, and you know what? Actually, I forgot to mention, Alicia just told us she's going to be doing the MC Universe ep with John this week.
Right.
Rings and Rituals is going to be back next week with the finale of season 1, Alloyed. Remember that, David? That was
vaguely. We need to do a season 1 rewatch, don't we?
Yeah, that was the whole thing with the rings and the powers and all that.
Yeah. That's right.
Lovely conversations with Marilyn and Sarah. I please go listen to this. It's such a good podcast. And Radioactive Ramblings is covering The Boys. I jumped in on their first episode for the first half hour of it, by the way. I'm on a pretty substantial chunk of it to give my hot takes on the first 3 episodes. And then I'm sure they had a long conversation after that. It was Aaron, Chase, and Richard. So a trio of podcasters there.
Okay. How was what's your, I saw episode 1. I didn't see 2 and 3 yet. Are you thumbs up on the season so far?
Yeah. I think it's great. Okay. It's a little more on the nose on the political climate, but it's still good. It's still really good.
Okay. Right on.
And
thanks for Radioactive Ramblings for covering The Boys, because there's just no way we could have covered all of this.
Absolutely. Especially after I was like, we're covering Doctor Who. So Radioactive Ramblings also has 2 other podcasts coming out this week. Fallout Lore, episode 4, The Master, and All Knowing's Lore Corner, Timeline of the Lands Between. I have no idea what that means, but I'm excited.
I recognize those words, but I don't know what they mean when they're put together. In that
Very
sequence.
Cool stuff, though. Properly Howard is covering Hero at Large this week on their Felonies and Fugazis series, where they're watching all these Prime movies.
Yeah,
they're almost done.
Yep.
And
good season.
Wool Shift Dust has a book club episode going out. That's Alicia's personal. I'm sorry. It's not book club. It's public, so everybody can enjoy it. Okay. An interview with Glenn Mazzara, who I guess is a co-showrunner of Beacon 23. All right, David, we got plenty on the Lorehounds feeds, but for now, can you give us the Patreon thank yous and a pitch for the Patreon and Supercast?
Well, the pitch for the Patreon and the Supercast is that our little collective is putting out a lot of podcasts. And so if you enjoy what we do, then we would invite you to support. We have a lot of fun doing what we do. And it means a lot for us to have your support, make sure that everybody gets some benefits from what we're doing, and obviously to pay for all of the costs that we have involved in actually trying to put out good quality, decent coverage that we do. To our supporters, a couple of things too. If you go to the show notes on this, go to the Linktree link in the bottom, and then that will take you to Supercast. Supercast is better than Patreon for us. It's a better platform overall for podcasters. It's basically the same thing. But Patreon's a well-known, established brand, so either one is fine for us. If you want the show guide, because you want to support us, but you don't want to have to deal with recurring subscriptions and canceling and all that kind of stuff, go to the show guide. Again, in the show notes, there's a link, and $10 flat, and you get all of season 1, our season 1 coverage and season 2 coverage in perpetuity. You will have that forever. And the show guide as well, and our hot takes. To our Discord server boosters who donate to the community to have us have a better server: Gnarls, Aaron K, Tiller the Thriller, Dork of the Ninjas, Duve71, Captain Gingy 56, and Athena Agilia. Thank you all so very much. To our lore masters, they're our top tier supporters. We like to thank them every time we do this: Samartian, Michael G, Michelle E, David W, Brian P, Nick W, SC, Peter OH, Bettina W, Adam S, Nancy M, our fabulous email Dragon Master, Duve71, Brian 8063, Frederick H, Sarah L, Gareth C, Eric F, Matthew M, Sarah M, DJ Miwa, Andra B, Kwang Yu, Jedi Bob, who we hear a lot with Alicia on the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast. Thanks, Bob. Nathan T, Alex V, Aaron T, Sub-Zero, Aaron K, Dally V, Mothership 61, Gnarls, Kathy W, our newest lore master. Welcome, Kathy W. Thanks for joining up. And forever last, Adrienne. Thank you all so very much. Your ongoing support means the world to us. And yeah, John, it's been a pleasure. I am ready for episode 2. I don't know about you, but I think you are. Are you even there?
Me too. I'm so ready for the rest of the season. If I could unmute my microphone.
That'd be good.
Well, see you all next week.
Hot Lore Summer.
The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by The Lorehounds. You can send questions and feedback and voicemails at thelorehounds.com/contact. Get early and ad-free access to all Lorehounds podcasts at patreon.com/thelorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employers or other entities. Thanks for listening. This summer, we enter a new era of Star Wars.
You mean the Dawn of the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast?
Yeah, sure, that too. But I was obviously talking about the Acolyte. We've got to cover that on the Lorehounds.
Oh, but the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast is exactly at that point in the timeline, the end of the High Republic, 100 years before the prequel trilogy. We've got to cover it there.
Why not both?
Okay, deal.
It's the first live-action Star Wars outside the Skywalker saga. Nobody can miss this.
Listeners, kick off your hot lore summer weekends with scene-by-scene breakdowns of the Acolyte, found in both the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast and the Lorehounds Mother feed.
And the Lorehounds Star Wars feed.
Wherever you like to listen, a couple of days after each new episode is released.